when we are working for print production, and we mentioned, yes, this is going to be not only interactive and digital PDF, but it will also have the ability to be printed, and some of those interactive qualities will be absent. The formal elements that we've been talking about with, in the last couple of discussions about producing a catalog, that for two-dimensional design, we are considering line, and line does not have to be a literal line. Line can be an arrangement of visual elements in alignment. Value, and we'll talk about that in particular when we relate to color. Shape, and that includes the typography, not only the shape of the letter, the shape of the word, the shape of the paragraphs, as well as the shape of the columns. Texture, and yes, it is possible to create texture to cause people to suspend disbelief of something being two-dimensional and giving the illusion of being three-dimensional. Color and form. These are all building blocks for two-dimensional design that we consider within an overall graphical layout. So if we think of a line that as a tool that's being drawn across the surface, it can be almost anything. It could be a pencil, a pointed brush, a computer and mouse, even a cotton swab. You might think of it as a moving dot or point, or even an open path. And there are several types of lines that we visually consider. And in layout, we know the rules and the lines, and then how can we visually break those rules in visually stimulating ways. So there are various ways playing with margarita salt and margarita mix that we can do visually interesting things and cause the viewer's eye to move differently. Because we could have taken this bottle, put it here, taken this bottle and put it here, and then stacked the cans over here in such a way that the tallest bottles are here, the next tallest are here, and then the cans. And that line would have been a line that bisects the page, but we would view it differently. From left to right, taller to shorter. And that line would have been created at the top surface of each of these. As it is right now, because a line, this is one of the things I really love. I've heard people say, I'm not an artist, I can't even draw a straight line. How boring that would be. Because there are other lines that they're creating within this arrangement. We have a line that dips, creates a valley. We have a line of a dome. We have a slightly curved line down here. And if we're looking at this, we are looking at it as being symmetrical, too. Symmetrical relies on balance. And that symmetry being then is if we were to fold these elements in half, they would be opposed against each other. So it's symmetrical around the center.
I like how it says, on this one hand it says mark, and then the next hand finishes it.
That's another line that is achieved with text. Because you see, yeah, as Candace pointed out, it gives you half of it, and and the other half. So there are various ways, and when you're thinking about, when you're doing catalogs, sometimes there will be images in catalogs, and it's not just at auctions, but in art catalogs, where there may be 2 or 3 artworks in the same photograph. So you may be looking at a representative example of Paul Gauguin and his ceramics that were strongly influenced by South American moche ceramics. You ever heard of Gauguin? The painter? He's called an impressionist, a Fauvist, most often a real bastard, probably not a real nice man. He's considered one of the fathers of modern art. Did you know that he was half Indian? Isn't that wild? One of the fathers of modern art. South America.
Can you say that name?
Paul Gauguin. Gaugin. And he's known for his paintings when he ditched his wife and family and went to Tahiti, took all his clothes off and lived there for a while. So you see all these paintings from Tahiti. But he's actually a city boy. He was great friends with another famous Impressionist painter. His name was, ever heard of Starry, Starry Night? Van Gogh. But if you have a grouping of his ceramics, and you've got a limited space, so you're going to show one page of Gauguin and you want some explanatory text. You might take 3 representative examples and have them set up in a type of arrangement that has primacy, subordination. Subordination means one thing is ranked higher or lower than the other. That allows the people to view peepers, all right, to view things as being apparent yet visually interesting, and you are thinking about lines or shapes that you are creating. Which brings us to shape here. So the general outline of something is a shape. And we can look at it as a closed form or a closed path. And if we look at shapes here and how they work with each other, that you have a Chile, you have Coyote Loco mirroring the shape of the Chile, and then you have the Coyote creating the illusion that coming out of the hollow is Coyote, okay? Or maybe howling at the moon. And the Chile placed against stars could also be giving a metaphor for the moon. Because most images we see of coyotes, when they're done in profile, they appear to be howling, and stereotypically howling in the sky and the moon, or barking at the moon. And then value, the lightness or darkness of a visual element. And within that then, how does this lightness or darkness create a contrast so that we see things as visually distinct from one another? If we're looking at value and, oh darn, we don't have it. I was hoping we had a yellow marker in here. One of the things never to do is to put yellow type on a white page. Why? Can't see it because of the value. Unless you make that yellow if you add a bit of black or a bit of red to it. Just a touch to increase the contrast. It may work. But in general, yellow will not work. Pure yellow will not work on a printed surface. If it's to white page. So going back to value, that there's enough of a difference between the kind of cerulean blue that you see here against the more, gosh, I don't know what I would call that. This is actually, if you actually saw the printer, because the way it's projecting from the monitor, it's more towards cerulean, but it actually is meant to be, what color do you think? Think southwest, turquoise. It is a blue juxtaposed against a blue. Color is the name of the color. Red, green, blue, or orange. Has anyone here taken any two-dimensional art classes? Because there is the fundamentals of color class. I think Linda teaches that here. And generally, if we talk about primary colors, we're thinking about three of them. But the value is the range of lightness or darkness, such as a light red or dark red, a light yellow or dark yellow. And then when we talk about shade, tone, and tint are different aspects of that value. The lightness or darkness. Or saturation could be the brightness or darkness of the color. So it could be a bright red or a dull red. Bright blue or dark blue. And it's different than light or dark. I'm sorry, a bright blue or dull blue. We can think of brightness almost as the luminosity. How much does something appear to shine or not on the page, or appear to be muted on the page? As people who are designing catalogs, digital catalogs, you'll be thinking about this primarily with text, because the images are already going to be color or black and white. That's going to be done for you by the artist ahead of time. So you're going to be thinking about it in terms of typography. And it doesn't hurt sometimes when you are doing a page layout to actually sample the color of a photograph and then use that as the color of the text so that it works in a cohesive manner with the object. So primarily, in publishing the artwork of other artists, you're really worried about it related in particular to typography. And then how does that typography and its color work with the graphic images? So when we're working with light on artwork, for example, there are three primaries. There are red, yellow, and blue. Those are the primary colors. You have the secondary colors, which are created when you mix a primary with another primary. So when you mix a red with a yellow, you actually will create an orange. If you mix the orange with yellow, you'll get a yellow-orange. So we would think of that as a tertiary color. Primary, secondary, and tertiary. When you mix red and blue, you get purple. When you mix red with purple, you get violet. When you mix blue and yellow, you get green. And when you mix yellow with green, you get a yellow-green. So yellow-green being the tertiary. So we think of that as being an additive color system. And actually, if all of these were put together, you'll come up with the color white. And the absence of color is black. So white light actually breaks down into these colors. White light is actually comprised of all of these colors. So if you remember that Pink Floyd album, Dark Side of the Moon, you see the light entering the prism, and then the spectrum. That's what white light breaks down to, or when you add them all together, all of those colors create white. This is different than the way you think about it in print. So if you have taken art classes, you have to think of this differently when you're going into print. But this is to show you the two different ways of viewing color. Because when we're doing posters or paintings, we're thinking about variations of yellow, red, and blue. What I really enjoyed in a painting class that I took when I was a student here is that the instructor would only let us use 3 tubes of paint: red, yellow, and green. I'm sorry, red, yellow, and blue. Any of the other colors we had to learn to mix, which was painful at the time. I hated fields. But it really did help you understand that when you're mixing color, you want to make sure that you still maintain its luminosity, its brightness, for example. And if you really know your color, that saves a lot of money. Particularly when you start using really good pigment. Because when you go to a Hobby Lobby and you buy the acrylic that is $10.99 for a tube that's big, in about 5 years, that piece that you painted may have been visually beautiful when the paint was brand new, but it has so much filler in it that 5 years from now it's faded. The same way that most of your commercial inks that you get for printers, unless you're buying archival quality ink, within 5 years before it's going to fade. It happens in paint too. And if you have only 3 colors of painter, you're better off spending $30 up front on a really good tube of acrylic red, 30 for a good tube of yellow, and 30 for a good tube of blue. It's more work, but long term, the work will maintain its integrity. So we're working with lights, green, red, and blue. In printing, though, we're going to be using yellow, magenta, and cyan. Those are the main colors for the process inks that they're used for color reproduction. Now, you'll note that any of you have a printer that has a color cartridge on it. But when you look at that color cartridge and you look at the box, you'll find that it doesn't say red, yellow, and blue. It says red, cyan, and magenta. But you'll note that you also have a black cartridge with a color printing. And when you are printing in color, there is black being added to that photo. And that's done to increase contrast. But when you start to move toward archival, because when you are just doing your red, yellow, and blue, this is going to be your basic stock commercial inks or pigments or dyes. That's the thing when you look at printing, by the way, and I think Richard talked about this, is that you can get your printers really cheap now. What you pay for is the recharge cartridges. If you do a lot of photography, you're better off going to a better grade printer that is going to actually add more color. So once you get to, say, for example, Richard actually just bought one, Epson R2400, which is actually an older printer. But we have to use 8 color cartridges in that printer.
$10.49.
It's $10.49. Ah! Causing my heart to soar like a hawk. All right, so I'll talk more about that after we take a break. Take 15 minutes.
Sorry.